Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. This is our April 2024 kit release compilation video. If you're new to the channel, and there are a few new people here, and if you're here because of our new podcast that myself, James Tester of Scale Model Experiment, and Sean Svensson of Sven's World of Wheels on Facebook are operating, welcome! This is regularly scheduled pre-recorded content. We've been doing a lot of live streams, and some of, I don't know if all of them, but at least some of the most two recent episodes are going to be turned into audio podcasts as I get the chance to edit those. This video should have come out several weeks ago, but my family was befallen by some sort of upper respiratory infection. Like my wife, she's congested. I have a cough stuck right here. And I couldn't get more than 2 sentences out without coughing my lungs up. So recording was not an option. So it's late, but I beg your forgiveness, if you will, for having this little down with a sickness issue. Also, if there's weird jump cuts in this where I'm talking and then I'm in a different position and suddenly talking about the same thing, that's because I had to stop the video, edit out a huge section of me wheezing, and then get back into the recording. So beg your indulgence on that one. Anyway, this month, several releases domestically, and then of course several releases internationally. The notable thing here, a couple of releases out of BMAX and New, which I know, not everybody cares, but that's a company that is so far behind on their promised items that every time something slides off the front of that into production, that means the rest of the queue is also sliding forward, and there's several kits that have been long promised that I know a lot of people were looking forward to. The 911 RSR, things like that. So yeah, let's just hop into things. So you have a few releases out around too. A couple of AMT kits, a couple of MPC kits, and then Salvino's being the other thing we're going to show you here. Now, Revel has announced that they're going to be dropping 3 kits here at the very beginning of May. Depending on when I get this video uploaded, because NNL East is coming up here at the end of the week, you may already be able to purchase these kits. We're going to cover them in the May release video because that's when they're supposed to come out. But if they ship early, or you could buy them at NNL East because, guys grabbed the stock that they could, right, and they brought it to the show, understand that, the kits may be there. But, again, by the time you see this, the show might be over. So, whatever. Anyway, the Revel kits are a reissue of the 77 Chevy, what they're calling Street Pickup. You may recall that out of the Hot Rod series of kits. There was also a Monogram Motorworks release of that in 2007. Really just abjectly awful kit. Not going to sugarcoat that for anybody out there. I don't care how much you like this kit. You're never going to convince me that it's any good at all. It's got a weird, wonky, very fiddly and fragile front suspension that doesn't represent a real thing at all. It doesn't fit at all. It doesn't look good at all, in my personal opinion. I'll never tell you not to buy something, but it has been a foundation of this show since it started 8+ years ago. Understand what you're buying. There's never a circumstance where you should buy something, open the box, and be like, what the hell did I just buy? Because you didn't research it. So understand that is a very, very, very weak kit. And if you want to make something out of it, which you possibly could, make something delightful out of it, if you are so inclined to really love square box Chevys, there's going to be a lot of work involved. Out of the box, it's going to be a pile of farts. Just know that going in. Also releasing a reissue of the 57 Ford Del Rio Ranch Wagon. This is going to have new bumpers, a street machine style tube grill, some fat wheels and tires, as well as what are they calling chrome speed parts. Don't know what those actually are until we get the kit. And then they're also going to give you the option to build the turbocharged Thunderbird engine, which is one of those things in the 57 Ford. It's always been kind of really annoying, is that parts of that supercharger setup were in other versions of the 57 Ford. Part of it was in the original Del Rio Ranch Wagon that had the police car livery. It was in a monogram box for some reason, even though it was 2014 when that kit came out. Some of the turbocharged parts were in some of the other 57 Ford releases, the original custom, the police car version of that, and so on and so forth. The only one that actually, it may have actually been in the Gasser kit as far as the 57 Ford goes, but the only one that came with it as part of the kit and featured as part of the kit was the NASCAR kit, the Fireball Roberts kit. So having this all be there and actually be on the instructions and all of the parts, because they were on separate runners and not all those runners were included in every kit, having it all be in the ranch wagon is awesome. I appreciate that. And then the other kit would be a reissue of the 32 Ford two-door 2-in-1, which there's 2-in-1 because you can build it as a Highboy or with fenders. It's going to have the Halabrand style wheels out of the 32 Highboy Roadster. It's a kit we haven't seen in a good long time. I think that still exists. The tooling, or did it get modified into something else? Like this, modifying a Roadster into a Tudor isn't what happened, but both of those kits were released in like 2011, and that's the last time those kits have been seen. And yeah, who knows? It's just odd that those wheels have shown up in a different kit. Those 32 Fords, you know, they're designed to be modular, like the engines. There's so many engine options between all of the 3-window, the 5-window, the Tudor, the speed, the with a metal Fink or whatever that Speedwagon thing was. That was like a Woody custom 32 Ford Woody station wagon panel van thing. Like a lot of those parts interchange because that chassis is the same and everything, but not necessarily swappable. Like unless that's something that the new Revel is going to do, where they're going to start swapping parts between all those kits. That would be interesting. Because the 32 Ford, the Stacey Davidson, and the one that was just reissued as a 32 Hot Rod, the black car flame box art with the new engine and the Duval windshield, like that's a separate tooling. That Stacey Davidson kit was done as a new tool after all of the 32 Fords from the 90s through the 2000 kits, because there were just no more insert room on that original tooling, so they just made a new one. That's why like that 32 Ford doesn't have a brake master cylinder, even though it should. Because somebody forgot to put that part on the trees back then. So, yeah, those kits, again, they may be available by the time you see this. Otherwise, we'll go through box art-wise and in more depth and detail in May. Awesome. So, over at round 2. So, we have 5 kits total this month, and they are a 2 MPC, 3 AMT release. So, AMT, real quick off the top here, reissue the Fruhoff 40-foot refrigerated van with this is going to have Watkins Trucking logos in it, I believe, although the tractor is not included. Had to put that real big on the box art, because some people have been buying the tractor boxes, which if you've never bought one of these because you don't care about trucks, are about 1.5 feet long and like really, really narrow. They're only about, what is that? What is that? That's like 12 inches, right? No. They're like about, 6 inches wide, and they're only about 4 inches deep. So how the hell is a 300-part truck kit also in that box? Let's think about things. I have literally seen that complaint online, where somebody bought the trailer kit and it didn't come with the truck, even though the truck was pictured on the box art. So now there's a giant warning telling you the truck is not there, because apparently people are just that stupid. All right, cool. This is the society we live in. Yeah, so I believe the W925 that is in the picture here, I believe that came with Watkins box art, or Watkins livery in the box art, so now you have a matching set if you're so inclined. But it's been a little hot minute since the 40-foot refrigerated van has been out, so I know the truck guys have been waiting on that, so yeah, there you go, it's out if you're so inclined. Next up, you have a reissue of the 1939 Ford Tudor sedan. Speaking of Ford Tudors, now this is a 3940 kit. Like, it has parts to do either or. And I was informed that despite the fact that the 39 has not had a box art big things in like 25 plus years, that the 39 parts are actually in the most recent reissue of the 40 Ford Gasser, the sedan, that was in the I think it had an original art series boxing at one point too, but the most recent release of that. I think Ollie's had some not too terribly long ago. So yeah, street rod box art from the 1970s. If that's cool to you, you have a little bit of a collector box art thing here. I know the 2024 version of a 1970s box art isn't worth anything other than the nostalgia pool of like, I remember that on the shelves kind of thing, right? So if you're so inclined on that. Otherwise, no new parts to this. Again, all the parts were in that Gasser kit. So if you have one, you don't need this per se, but, maybe you do. I'm not here to judge who buys what. That's not my job. Next up is going to be a reissue of the 1973 Corvette Roadster. This is a 90s era kit as far as its heritage goes. It is sort of the the flip side, the B side, if you will, to the 1970 LT1 ZR1 coupe kit. So it shares a lot of the parts with that. It's got a big block engine in it, obviously. If you look at that box art there, it's got the hood bulge style hood. So, yeah, big block C3 Corvette. I like C3 Corvettes. One of my friends in high school's dad had a 76 coupe in high school. So a little bit of just like, I remember that car and how proud his dad was of the car, even though like C3s in the late 70s were pretty pathetic performance-wise. But, you know, the man had a Corvette, leave him alone. You know, and it's a pretty decent kit all in all, because the Mueller era kits from the 90s were usually pretty spot on. I know the Corvette guys can pick at the Corvettes because there's no perfect kit, period, but there's really no perfect Corvette kit, I've come to find over the years. So yeah, it is what it is with that. I don't know. I don't care enough to pick a fight about it. That's the best way I can think of. Pad printed tires, expanded decal sheet. It's been a hot minute since this one's been out. They reissued the 70 LT1 ZR1 kit a couple years ago, so natural follow on to that with this. I do appreciate. I know not everybody likes them, but I do appreciate the silent box arts where there's no printing on the front; it's just the picture. So if you're into that, cool. If you don't like it, tough. It's there. NPC kits, reissue of the Cat Street Machine Mercury Cougar. This kit hasn't been around since the 1980s, so it's been a hot minute since this was available last. This, I believe, I was 6 years old the last time this kit came out, so I don't know. I can't say exactly what was in it the last time. I could barely read. Now, I went to Catholic school. I could read when I was like 2, but I didn't have one of these when it was out last. Last time I think it's out, I think it said Golden Wheels. A buddy of mine just recently picked up a vintage NPC kit, and I was like, Golden Wheels, I remember that. Collect the Golden Wheels, but get a free model kit 9 months later when it finally shows up. The interesting thing to this, for folks that are like, Street Machine, it does come with a flat hood and stock wheel covers and a stock exhaust. I don't think, because again, I didn't have this kit when it was out last because I was 6, but I don't think that those parts were in it the last time. This kit, its heritage is the 70, 71, 72, 73 Cougars, the annual kits from MPC. And so I don't think when this came out as a Street Machine that all of the stock parts were included in it, and it hasn't been released since then. So having the stock parts in it actually makes me kind of, but probably not enough to buy it, but kind of interested in this, because the Street Machine is cool, air quotes, but it's also an NPC Street Machine, which means it's just like a bunch of crap thrown at the box and like, hey, it's a Street Machine now. And you're like, does a hood scoop and lake pipes make a Street Machine? And wheels that don't fit? Because the tire's like way too big for this model. I guess in 1970s low budget, no budget NPC, it certainly did. But anyway, that's back out, expanded decal sheet, and again, you can actually build it almost, or if not completely factory stock, in a non-Street Machine way, which is pretty awesome to have it back that way. Last NPC kit is going to be a reissue of the 1979 Chevy Nogo. I literally just went no-go in my head. I translated that out of Spanish right there in front of you in real time. The 79 Chevy Nova. This is the NPC tooling. There's an AMT version of the late 70s Nova as well. This is the NPC kit. Stock and Street Machine. I'm thinking this is the Street Machine on the box art, because remember, late 70s NPC kit, Street Machine, throw big wheels, lake pipes, and a hood scoop at it. Poof, Street Machine. I kind of like this just from the malaise era of model kits. Like, there's so... People don't remember. The fact that these cars existed in real life, they don't remember. But they don't remember these things existed as model kits. But guys, there are model kits of Chevettes and Cavaliers and, you know, things like that. Those kits exist. They were made. Dodge Omnis. Because that was what existed in real life, and they were still making promo models back then. So you got these weird, you know, nominally stock cars. So yeah, I don't know that I would buy either. That and the Cat are two things that if I saw them at Ollie's for $10, I'd buy one, but 30, probably not, just because there's so much stuff, and the last thing I need are projects that are like, haha, that's cool, and then I forget about them. So Nothing wrong with this. It's just, yeah, I have too much crap and I don't need this necessarily, but it's pretty cool to have back. Just from the aspect, this is pretty much the squad rod, just without all the police parts. If you're curious about like the lineage and what you're buying, so if you have a squad rod and you weren't planning to build the police car version of it, you don't need a second one. But that's the street machine aspect of this, is the squad rod parts minus the light bar, and so yeah, pretty cool. Over at Salvino's, we have 3 kits this month. We have 1 vintage, the club kit that everybody got, and then the 2 more Camaro next gen cars. So the club kit, the vintage kit, is a reissue of the 1986 Chevrolet Monte Carlo. This is a Tim Richmond Folgers livery. Now some people will go, hey, wait a minute, Monogram actually not only made this kit period, but also made this specific car. And isn't the shtick of Salvino's JR that they don't actually reissue old Monogram kits, including the decals? Yes. If you actually looked at the 2 decal sheets, you notice that this one is not the same exact 100% same decal sheet. It is a slightly different decal sheet from a different race. I think this is Bristol in the box art. That may not matter to you. You might be like, what the hell difference does that make? But if you got the 2 kits, if you have an original one and it's open and you're not going to like destroy the $2 it's worth when it's sealed, like compare the 2 decal sheets. In addition to printing technology being wildly different all these years later, the decals are just better, right? Everything's the right shape, the right size, the right place. Clay Kemp does the decal design and drawing stuff for Salvino's now. Has been for probably the last year and a half, 2 years. And he is a man after my own heart in the sense that he's a stickler for details and making things correct. So, I'm just looking on here to see if they blanked off the Winston Cup logo. I don't think they did. But then this was a promo box art, and it's not the actual finished box art. But at any rate, there's a long story there. They can't put the Winston logo in the kits anymore because they actually are licensed by NASCAR. When they weren't licensed by NASCAR, NASCAR didn't care, but now that they are, they do. So, yeah, figure that out. But at any rate, aside from the fact that this kit won't smell like old socks and a box of cat farts, because it would have been in somebody's basement for the last 30 years, it's a nice minty fresh decal sheet. If you're like Tim Richmond was just an interesting person, a character in real life. It's said that a portion of Tom Cruise's character in Days of Thunder was based off Tim Richmond's sort of personality and life. Totally got shafted by NASCAR. And then of course unfortunately passed away early from AIDS. But this may be one of the few vintage kits that Salvino's puts out that I actually keep. I tend to like get these, look at them, go, I'm never gonna build that, and I sell them. I might keep this one just because it's a cool piece, and I think Tim Richmond was an interesting person, and in order for me to have connection to a race car, it either needs to have won something significant, and he almost won the championship in 1986, or it needs to just be like I like this driver and I want to build stuff from this driver. So that's where this sort of falls. Over into the next gen kits, you have William Byron's Daytona 500 Championship for 2024. So race that was just run back here in February. This is the livery that ran it, and again, the decals here are going to be primo in the sense that they've reproduced with pretty nice accuracy the fluorescent orange the flames are, and they really punch you in the nose fluorescent yellow that the numbers are. Decal printing technology, oh, it's just so awesome these days. And I realize that these kits cost a buttload of money, primarily because these decals cost a buttload of money. But yeah, if you're into having things be the right color, I mean, they could have just made these red and yellow and thrown them out there, and people would have just been like, okay, cool. But having them be like the right popping neon colors is pretty awesome. To building a replica, right? Because if you're buying this kit specifically, you're buying it to replicate the Daytona 500 winner, because this livery in this configuration isn't running any other races this year. It wasn't actually supposed to be it wasn't supposed to look like this, and they changed it right before the race. The last kit from Salvino's JR is the Hendricks Motorsports Kyle Larson car. This is for the Coca-Cola 600, so this is a not yet run car, and this is the sort of sister cousin kissing twin of the Indy car that he's running. Kyle Larson is pulling the double this year, or we're going to attempt to pull the double this year, where he's going to run the Indy 500 and then the Coca-Cola 600 afterwards. I don't think anybody's done that since John Andretti did it. I know that there was always talk of Jimmy Johnson doing it, but I don't think Jimmy Johnson ever actually pulled that one off. Could be wrong. I might not remember. Tony Stewart, I believe, also tried to do it, but I guess Tony Stewart would actually literally be the last person to do it. Anyway, who did it last? Not important. He's doing it now. This has like orange accents all over the box art, as you saw, and those are the papaya orange McLaren accent colors, because his IndyCar is a McLaren Aero, which really doesn't mean very much in IndyCar, because IndyCar, much like NASCAR now, is a spec chassis. All of the cars look the same. It's either Honda powered or Chevy powered, and that's the only difference between the two. Now, Salvino's JR, as you may know, is doing 1/20th scale IndyCars here this summer, and the other half of this will be available in that car. Now, they're never going to, they can't sell it like as a box set. No one buys box sets. You may buy a box set, but no one else would. Box sets have traditionally sold really, really bad, and this would be incredibly expensive, but as a box set, it would be like over $100. And there's a lot of competing licensing between IndyCar and NASCAR as to what like associate sponsorships are there. And if you think that doesn't matter, unfortunately, you're incorrect, because there's a lot of very little minor tweaky things that go on behind the scenes. The box art to that Daytona thing has a missing sponsorship in the actual picture of behind the car. The car is going to be 100% correct, but there was a competing associate sponsorship thing between the podium picture and the actual car. So the podium picture has been edited with that little thing being taken off, and you didn't even realize it was missing, because, well, when was the last time you saw a podium of that Daytona car? At any rate, little things like that matter, and trying to put the IndyCar and the NASCAR kit in the same box, it wouldn't work. McLaren doesn't want anything to do with Chevy, even though Hendrick owns both cars, and it's a whole thing. And so, no. The answer to that is no. If you want to buy both, to do a double, you gotta have to buy two separate kits. They're not gonna box them. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but life is what it is. That takes us overseas to Japan. Just a few things out of pretty much everybody. There's no Tamiya kits this month, but everybody else. First up, out of Aoshima's reissue of the 2020, the 2000, 24 years ago, Toyota Celsior. I personally would love to see this come back as a Lexus. It hasn't been badged that way in 20 years. The kit's 24 years old, but it's been 20 years since this was badged as an LS430. I think they could sell a run of LS430s, especially the 1,500, 2,000 piece reissue runs that Aoshima does. I know that's a whole licensing thing, and some dude in his basement in Pennsylvania isn't going to make Aoshima do that, but it would be cool if they did it. I have one. I don't need another one, but it would just be cool in general, because all the parts exist. They still have the left-hand drive parts to this. That wasn't a resin Satco conversion. The plastic parts exist for this, as well as the Lexus grill and stuff, but I understand why it's not being done. The other kit out of Aoshima this month is a reissue of the Liberty Walk Lamborghini Aventador Limited Edition. This kit got released not too terribly long ago as a silver car. This was a commemorative edition, so to speak, if you will, for the Liberty Walk founders' birthday and the 25th anniversary of the company. Only difference between this kit and that kit is this one's molded in mint green. That's it. I know a lot of times the Liberty Walk kits have different wheels, different spoilers and stuff like that, and those things do exist in other kits, but these two specifically are the same. It's just what color the car is molded in. And if you're like, why do they do that? Well, there were a whole bunch of new pieces added to this to update this to the Liberty Walk, to the Aventador Evo spec car. So that was a different hood and different headlights and different front end pieces and things like that. So you're going to get a little mileage out of creating those new pieces by issuing it a second time, just in a slightly different color. So, is what it is. And if you didn't buy the first one, hey, there's a chance to buy this one and have it in a slightly different color than everybody else's. Over at Fujimi, first up, reissue of the 1/12 scale R32 GTR. This is the 1993 Japanese Touring Car Championship Series entrant and champion. The iconic, let's put it that way, it is iconic Calsonic livery on this one. The blue, the Calsonic. I mean, that was a thing from the 1980s through the 20-teens. The car's still blue, but Calsonic as a company doesn't exist anymore. It's been absorbed into other things. But, yeah, ABS plastic, doors open. This is a kit that screams out for additional detail. And at this point, there's quite a lot of 3D files that exist to upgrade these 112 scale, hold them McLaren, these 112 scale GTRs. So might be something worth looking into, especially if you have your own 3D printer and you don't have to buy. You could just buy files and not have to buy parts. But certainly something to consider. As this was like an upsized 124 scale kit, and so it lacks a lot of pizzazz and oomph you'd expect out of a big scale kit for $150. Keep that in mind. But this is the most recent version. They've done several of these 112 cars, including the street version of this car, since they started reissuing them. This is, I think, the 5th one of these that have come along. So you know what you should be expecting here if you're so inclined into, hopping into the big scale of those. And then we have a reissue of the Nissan Micra, the Nissan Micra outside of Japan, K11 Nismo edition. So, interestingly, even though I don't necessarily believe it was exported to a left-hand drive company as a Micra, because the Micra went to like Australia and the UK, it must have, because this kit comes with left-hand drive. And it also, interestingly enough, also comes with all the decal badging to make a Nissan Micra, even though nothing like that is mentioned anywhere in the literature or the box art. So if you were so inclined and wanted to do something that I don't necessarily think you could get here in the United States, but you could make it look like it did, in the sense that it even has left-hand drive wipers. There's a lot of times there's a left-hand drive dash, but not the wiper. Wipers, dashboard, console, Micra decals for the specific version of this car that it was. That's very cool. Because if you're going to be nitpicky about detail, that's one thing you could usually do with a Fujimi kit. Like, oh, they did this thing and they just threw wheels at it and went, that's a different version. This one legitimately has all of the badging for the March and the Micra that this car really is, because there is no technical Nismo edition of this car like there is with certain things that Nissan made. This is like a Nismo, what if Nismo car. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and it's a 90s tooling, so it's not like a motorized kit. So I think that could like peck at the corner of your mind of like, it's a $13 model kit, you might want one of those. It's a $13 model kit, you might want one of those. So maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's certainly something you could consider. And then 2 more Fujimi kits. So you're going to get, I don't know, for some reason, my file thing that I keep in the background just went all haywire. Anyway, this is a 1986 Nissan Fairlady 300ZR. This is a pretty mediocre kit. And this is the High Society version of this kit. And the High Society version, for the folks that weren't here the last couple of months, has this weird chewing gum rubbery side thing that goes on. You see it there, it's the lower body cladding between the wheels. That comes as one giant piece of this weird material. It's not resin, it's not plastic, it's like rubber. It's got self-adhesive sticker thing on the back of it. They give you a little template in the instructions, and you have to follow the template to cut it out so that it, fits the shape of the side of the car, as well as obviously having scoring in the cladding for the door to open once again. You only get this one set of wheels that are shown in the box art, and they are big and little in the sense of the dish, the depth of the wheel from the actual lip of the wheel. So it's a real deep dish inside back wheel. It's a fat back wheel that doesn't exist in a real prototype. It does have left-hand drive. You could build this as a 300Z. I think this technically would have still been a Datsun in 1986 here, but man, is it an awful kit otherwise. It's not something I can recommend unless you're just building this for curbside. Building this for your shelf. You're building this for sitting on a table and people admiring your paintwork. That might be a reason to buy this. Otherwise, I can't with good, reputation behind my words. It sounds like really egotistical, but I mean, really, I know people watch this and they buy stuff based on what I like. Sometimes I can't recommend this, so caveat emptor on that. And then there's this Lancer Evo 7 thing that says rally model. So this is Tommy Mackinnon's championship car in 1997. If you want to buy a rally version of this, go buy the Tamiya kit. You'll get the same kit with the Tommy things, because this kit, this decal liveries the setup was for the rally, the Australian rally, and I think this was 1997 if I'm not mistaken. But when this car was run, Australia had already banned tobacco, so instead of having Marlboro things on it, it had Tommy on the front of it because, again, he won the championship in this car. The reason why I tell you to buy the Tamiya kit, obviously, other than, hey, it's a Tamiya kit, it's awesome, it's a Tamiya kit, is the fact that this is not actually a rally car. This is just a street car with decals. There's no roll cage. There's no racing interior. It's just a like, tribute car. Alright, okay. I mean, it's something that they did before, so it's just a reissue, but I just don't get it. It's just a really odd thing to do, right? Like, ooh, it's a rally car, but it's not. And it's the Tommy Mäkinen, livery from his championship car, except that it isn't. And it's got like the electronic thing on the hood where you tell the safety workers where to pull the fuses to turn the car off in case the engine's running, it can't be shut off. Except obviously it wouldn't because it's not a rally race car. But I mean, it's an Evo 7, and if you don't have an Evo 7, there's this. I mean, they just released an Evo 7 last month, and so this is a different one. Like, I don't get this. It's not a bad model kit necessarily, but I just don't get this. Like, I don't understand them. This was one of those things where the Evo 7 has about 6 or so of these box art things where it's like tributes to things that don't exist. Like, it's a tribute to a rally car, but it's not a rally car. There's several tributes to drift cars that aren't really drift cars. They're just have the decals for them. So, yeah. Okay, Fujimi. You do you. And that'll take us over to Hasegawa for this month. Hasegawa, a number of reissues, and some of them are unfortunate, if you will. We'll get into that here in a second. So first up, you have the Volkswagen Type 2 Microbus with roof carrier. The Microbus is what it is. It's been around since the 90s. It's not a bad kit by any stretch of the imagination. I don't mean that dismissively, like it is what it is, but it is what it is. There's no new parts to it. The roof carrier, that whole thing is PE. All of it. The supports, the railings, the deck, all of it, PE. So enjoy that. That's a lot of bending, folding, and machinations to get that arch in a piece of PE, because PE is one-dimensional. So understand what you're getting into with that. It'd be very hard to make that in plastic, to be honest, because it's very thin. But at the same time, making it in PE makes it equally as ridiculous. Next up, you have the Lancia Stratos HF from the 1978 Acropolis Rally. Very cool Bic livery here. Argument with friends whether or not this was Bic pens or Bic lighters, but whichever one it happens to be. This kit is unfortunately not quite complete. If you look at it here, it's running gravel spec, and that's a very, very specific gravel spec front wheel. It's running the asphalt spec back wheel. And I think this caused Hasegawa some consternation of like, we're not going to pay to put all the parts in the kit that it needs, because they make those front wheels. They're in a couple of different Lancia Stratos kits. They're not in this one, though. They just gave you the asphalt wheels. And I think they may have given you the asphalt tires as well, which is kind of crappy. The dirt wheels are staggered. They're very narrow front wheels. And I guess it was just too much to ask to actually get them to do their jobs in the sense of making this correct. So understand that you're going to have to steal parts out of other kits. I don't necessarily know that there are 3D printed versions of those wheels. I mean, there could be 3D printed versions of nearly anything, but I don't know specifically those gravel wheels exist. But they do exist, like I said, in other Hasegawa kits. So if you wanted to, you could source them out, find somebody who's parting kits out and selling the pieces kind of thing, but disappointing. Then you have this further disappointment. This is a 93 Intertech, which is the 1993 Japanese Touring Car Championship Series, the Alpine Civic. This is would be a really, really cool kit if they bothered to do anything with it. They just regurgitated and vomited out the EG6 Civic, which is a pretty mediocre kit. You know, I know that people were like, oh, you love Japanese kits. I love some Japanese kits. This is a pretty mediocre model, all told. This kit doesn't have the right mirrors. It has the regular street mirrors and not these cup mirrors. Hasegawa makes 6-spoke flat-faced raised wheels. They're in several of the the Honda Farios, which are the 1994 four-door versions of the Civic that came along, that Hasegawa has like 6 race car versions of. Those wheels exist in those kits. No one that I'm aware of, 3D or otherwise, makes that 4-spoke flat-faced raised wheel in the back. Now, they do have a 4-spoke semi-flat-faced SSR rim that they created for the A92 Levins. they could have stuck that in there and it probably would have passed the smell test, because most people wouldn't know what that rim really looks like in real life. It's a really weird, oddly specific to this specific car wheel. But yeah, they didn't do that. They also didn't include the 6-spoke rims out of the Ferio, because apparently, giving you 4 rims that you only need 2 of was, again, too much to ask someone to do their job correctly. There's also, like, no color to this decal sheet. It's just words. Like, that whole U-turn on the front thing, that could have been a white decal. The thing's molded in white, and we have to paint it blue anyway. But no, you just get words and numbers here. So, complicated two-tone without a mask. The fact that the wheels aren't right, the fact that the mirrors aren't right. It's an unfortunate situation, because getting more JTTC cars is something that I fully support. I just don't fully support the half-assery that went on to make this kit. It's a rather unfortunate situation. Next up, you have Mazda 767B 1989 Daytona 24-hour race. So this car finished 5th overall and won its class in the 1989 24 Hours of Daytona. They, unlike that Honda and Lancia, which were like somebody's redheaded stepchild projects, this car actually has several new pieces added to it. It's got new mirrors. It has some new engine intakes, as well as a few other little odds and sods, if you will, to quote my British friends, in 3D printed resin parts. This continues Hasegawa's recent little foray into including 3D printed resin in their commercial model kits. I still believe, as far as I can tell, that this is really the only company that is doing that. Like, you can get 3D printed parts and stuff, and there's a whole bunch of world of 3D printed parts in airplanes and tanks, but not in car modeling. And Hasegawa, with several releases yet to come this year, as well as a couple that have already released in this kit, are starting to do those things where they're putting 3D printed parts into their models, which is awesome. Embrace the technology. Also embrace it to put the right effing wheels in your model kits. But anyway, there's still stuff with this kit that isn't correct to the prototype of the 1-to-1. I believe the headlights being one of them. The headlights in the kit itself are level, and these ones, obviously, the inside, the endurance light, if you will, the driving light, is a good 3 inches lower than the normal headlight on the outside, so you'd have to do a little adjusting there. I think the wheels aren't quite correct. Whoa, wrong wheels in a Hasegawa kit. Who would have thought? But it at the same time, it's not something that exists otherwise. I can't. I'd love to, but I can't. Sorry, Hasegawa, you're not getting any love this month. Next up, you have a reissue of the Subaru 360 in the Yokoshiro Megadoc 40th anniversary boxing. So, yeah, for this anime, this is for the 40th anniversary of this anime. Imagine that convenience. The Subaru 360 here is going to be the same Subi 360 that they've had kit of since the 90s. The literal only thing about this that makes it a special edition is that hood. Those decals come in the hood, the little Megadoc logo, if you will, that's on the actual roundy round part of the bottom of the hood there, as well as the wording. That's it. That's the only decals that come with this that don't come with the other ones. You paint this car pink because Japanese anime, but otherwise, I mean, the kit's fine. The 360 is a nice little model, but there's not really a whole lot going on here that makes a special edition other than like 2 pieces of decal sheet. But I understand, capitalize on the investment, if you will, of your tooling. And then the last Hasegawa kit, something we can actually sit back, relax, and go, something decent. So this is the 1973's Toyota Salka Liftback 1600 GT. For people who know their Hasegawa kits well enough, you're like, hey, wait a minute, there's no liftback. This was the LB stands for here. Not Liberty Walk, but liftback. There's no liftback in the Hasegawa catalog. No, there isn't. This, my friends, other than the chassis and like the suspension and stuff like that. The Watanabes come in the coupe kit as well, so those aren't new. The chassis, the actual drivetrain pieces of the chassis, I say drivetrain lightly because it's curbside, there's no engine, but the drivetrain parts, those carry over from the coupe that's been around since 2004. The interior, all of the interior, and the body, and all of the body. They made new body pieces and parts for this, like the grills and the bumpers and all that as well. All that brand new tooling. This is super awesome. I've wanted a good liftback Celica for like ever. Aoshima makes one, but it's the old Aime tooling, and it's motorized, and it's pretty crappy. It's also a 77 with a slightly different hood on it, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. So this is awesome sauce to finally have Hasegawa go like, hey, you know, for a little bit of investment, we could convert this into something that a lot of people have been asking for. Cool. Like I said, chassis, the engine itself is engraved in the chassis. The transmission is separate. All the other parts of the suspension are separate. So like no molded in exhaust or anything else like that. So it's slightly molded in, but not totally. So I can deal with that. And then having like I said again, a hatchback Celica body is super duper awesome in my personal opinion. The GT stripes come in a couple different colors. They come in black and white for sure. I think it might come in silver as well. I haven't looked at my decal sheet on that. But I know it comes in at least 2 colors, and so you could build this in a multitude of colors. One of the worst insults to modelers that model companies regularly do is they include side trim like that, but only in one color. So you're stuck doing the box art or something close to it because you can't do a black car with black GT stripes. That it wouldn't show up. So always a good time when you include multiple options for your trim decals. 2 thumbs up. Despite all the crap I gave Hasegawa for the last 5 minutes, 2 thumbs up on that. And again, it's a very specific interior, obviously with the liftback, that it doesn't match the coupe, so a whole new interior. It is a platform style interior with separate side panels, so that's all cool, brand new, state of the art. And I know if you don't care about this, you don't care about this, but for me, this is something I really wanted for a good long time, and I'm super happy to have this as something that Hasegawa has done, and not even really half-assed. It is the Ron Swanson don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing, and they whole-ass this one kit. Half-assed everything else this month, but they whole-ass this one, and 2 thumbs up from the Peanut Gallery on this decision. So, last 2 things we're going to talk about are a couple of reissues from BMAX Nunu. First up, on the BMAX side of things, is a reissue of their Brabham BT52 from the 83 Monaco Grand Prix. This is a straight up rebox reissue of their existing kit. This was the first 1/20th scale kit they did. It's if you have the old BMAX numbering system, that was BM 200001, and they couldn't reproduce it because of that whole snafu that occurred with BMAX and Aoshima and their co-branding, licensing, distribution nonsense that it finally expired last year. And that is why you're now going to see several of these really old, and old in the sense this came out in 2016 or so, these old BMAX kits are going to get reissued again. There is a PE set for this, and that has been reissued as well, so you can buy both at the same time. And so for 1/20th scale guys that have been wanting this one back, they did a couple of versions of the BT52, but the original BT52 has been out of production for 6 or 7 years, so that is back out there for you folks that are interested in it. And the other release is another reissue of their Audi R8. Slightly changed this time. This has the Evo 2 spoiler added. Now, for the aficionados of the Audi R8, I consider myself one, there are still several things with this kit that are incorrect when making a 2022 car. Primarily, the headlights are still wrong. They did not update the headlights from the 2015 spec to the 2019 spec, and then they didn't update them again to the 2022 spec. I can live with that. It's not that hard. Somebody will 3D print those eventually. And if you really want to change them out, you could take some hexagonal rod and cut the smooth out the details in there and mount the rod in there instead, and that'll give you the LED headlights. But the rear wing was always something you had to buy separately. Zoom-On made one. I think Fat Frog made one. Lao, LB Productions made one. There were several options to get them, but they were like $20 to get a spoiler with the spoiler stance. I always recommend LB Productions one because it was wholly 3D printed resin, and it was really sturdy and could take a little bit of a beating. The ones that were coming out of other companies were PE stanchions and PE winglets. And when you're gluing a bunch of PE to a bunch of resin, that's not the world's most secure thing in the sense of being something you could knock off or something that you could bend. Like if you whack the rear wing and it's up on PE stanchions, guess what you're doing? You're bending the PE into a shape that will never, ever, go back. 3D resin, while very, very, very fragile to a certain extent, is not something that's going to bend. It might break, but you can glue that back together again and it'll be straight once again. Can't do that with PE. So this is the Skechers livery from the 2022 Imola race, which was a sprint race. I believe, if I remember my racing, this car won that race, which is why this box art was chosen. This is also another one of those kits that I always say are the new Frankie specials, where SK Decals did this decal sheet, and they're just, while the decals are new, they're not just a reprint, necessarily like SK Decals put in the box, or a direct reprint of them. They're based on his art, and he did all of the design work for it, and they're his decals, just not branded as his decals, basically. Reprinted, they're not going to be the exact same decal sheet, because this has, the interior bits and pieces and all that, which weren't on the actual livery decal sheet. So, cool on that. Molded in white, I believe. And then the decals, if I remember right, I have this decal sheet, but I haven't looked at it for a little while. I believe, especially in this boxing, specifically all the yellow and black are decals. So, that is, that's a cool livery. Skechers, who doesn't like a good shoe livery, right? But again, the significant thing here is it has the new rear spoiler, and that's going to save you quite a bit of money. And I believe this is finally coming pre-order in Japan, but it's been out on the streets in Hong Kong and Asia otherwise for a couple of weeks now. So they're available, even though you might not technically be able to order them in places you would buy your new kits. There's still like a 2 to 3 week gap between when they get released and in Hong Kong and when they get released in Japan by Platts. So if you can't find one, or the pre-order is closed because all the pre-order slots are gone, the kit's coming and you'll be able to order it afterwards. It's a limited edition, but it's not like super duper limited. So, and again, like the Brabham, this has a PE sheet. It's the same PE sheet and carbon fiber sheet that's coming on all the R8s, with the undercoating, the under tray being a big part of the carbon fiber sheet. But it is available, so you can get the brake faces and the mesh and all that stuff that you normally associate with the new kits. So that is out there, and that also, guys, girls, if there happen to be any, is where this video ends. So appreciate your support. This is a little longer, but it may not actually be too long once I can condense it down, because I know there's several sections of me hacking my lungs up as I predicted. So the end product is not going to be as big as this product looks like, because I've got probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes of coughing to cut out. Awesome sauce. But that, you guys, as I say with these, now you know what you're buying this month, and we'll see you guys on the other side.